Hi all, welcome to Growing Bright Futures, which is a collaborative project of Building Bright Futures, Tree Leaven Inc., and the Early Care and Learning Partnership. We're trying to bring to you in-depth information about projects that are going on around the state of Vermont related to early childhood, and also a way to get to know a little bit better those people that are making such a huge difference in our state. So my guest today is Dora Levinson, who is developing the center at Building Bright Futures, and she's going to give us the details about that in just a moment. Welcome, Dora. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm delighted, and I'm wondering if you'd like to start by just telling what is the center, or what will the center be when it's up and running?
So we are really excited to be launching the Vermont's Early Childhood Resource, Data, and Policy Center. It is, the mission is to help Vermont's early childhood system to use evidence to inform policy. That is what the whole thing is about. And there are lots and lots of ways that the center is helping to do that we can get into. But so the full name is Vermont's Early Childhood Resource, Data, and Policy Center, but we're calling it the center.
And so I have a long history with attempts to get good information out to communities, and often it's so cumbersome that people just find they can't use the systems that are in place. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how this will be different and how people in the community might use it.
Absolutely. That's a great question, and definitely something that I have struggled with. I have worked with Vermont Insights, which is what Building Bright Futures used to use for putting data out to the field. And a lot of the reports were trying to do everything. So you would be able to see by different geographies and by different ages and over time and comparing between years. And you would have to do all of this work on the back end to keep things up to date. And it required a lot of programming. And we don't have a full-time developer.
Is that you? Are you a developer?
I am not a full-time developer.
Okay.
I definitely am more of the, I'm working with our executive director, Dr. Morgan Crossman, who is really leading this center. So it's the two of us working together with a small team. We have a great developer, Dave LaPointe, who has actually been working. He worked on the original iteration, which was the early childhood ECDRS. I don't even know what it stands for, but it was really old, like the original version of Vermont Insights. And he has been really instrumental in this process as well. So one of the things that we have done is really streamline some of these reports. So what you'll see is that we're not trying to capture every single thing. It's not as dynamic, but we're hopeful that that means that there will be more that's available. And for example, one of the things that we have done is to be able to, I was talking to Darla about this just before, and there's a lot of officially publicly accessible data that even as a data person, I didn't know existed. And for example, Teaching Strategies Gold. I have been asked for Teaching Strategies Gold information for a really long time, and I didn't think that it was available. But in fact, there is a report that goes to the legislature each year about Teaching Strategies Gold and the data that's involved in that, that comes out of those assessments. So we are actually working with the Agency of Education, and they are, because they're not able to push that data out to make it really front facing. But clearly people throughout the early childhood system are interested in that.
Yeah.
So we can then take some of the tools on the back end of this website and be able to fairly easily, without a lot of programming, take that and share it. So you'll see that for the first time, this year's How Are Vermont's Young Children and Families does contain teaching strategies gold information. So
I noticed that, yeah.
really exciting, definitely a new thing. And so this is just like one example of how we think this is going to be different. It's really partnering with state agency partners and organizations to be able to share the information that actually exists. That's really important to be able to inform policy and practice, but there isn't the capacity to be able to push that out from these agencies.
Right. So were you thinking that you might show us a little bit what this looks like in prototype?
Absolutely, I definitely can.
Okay.
So one of the things is, let me just see. So let me just start by saying we just released How Are Vermont's Young Children and Families. Mm-hmm. And I've worked on, this is the third year of working on this report, and I feel like this year is really the strongest year. And it's really exciting. There are some new data points, and it's organized in a way that I think is really useful to the field and based on a lot of the feedback that we've gotten. Mm-hmm. How Are Vermont's Young Children and Families is really this snapshot. And so one of the things that the center is allowing us to do is to be able to have additional information. So we are actually working with the Department of Mental Health on a supplement on early childhood and family mental health, because the short paragraph about the number of children accessing services was really not enough. So that's one of the things that the center is going to be able to do. I'm just going to do a quick screen share. So this is the front page, and again, data, resources, policy. This is really how everything is organized. And again, just trying to show some of the cool things that are coming up right away. So again, How Are Vermont's Young Children and Families, the updated early childhood action plan for Vermont, and then did this whole family engagement assessment at Building Bright Futures. So one of the things with the action plan is that we, for the first time with this update that was recently published, there are indicators for each of the outcome areas, right, each of the goals, so that we can tell, are we really making progress? And we wanted to be able to have all of this information in a centralized place. Mm-hmm. So this is the dashboard for the VCAP, for Vermont's Early Childhood Action Plan. And you can see, again, this nested way of seeing, with the child within the family context, within the community context, and then within larger system context. So for each of the goals, there's, you can click on the goal. And then let's say I'm interested in learning more about mental health, mm-hmm, and the mental health outcomes. Here are the outcomes for mental health within goal 1, which is that all children have a healthy start. And just because we were talking about early childhood and family mental health, let's click on the percent of children with a mental, emotional, or behavioral health condition. And then we scroll down and there's a little bit of information about this indicator as well as the data. So it's all right here. And this will be, so this will be automatically updated as things. So this particular indicator comes from the National Survey of Children's Health. So when there's a new version of that comes out, then this will be automatically updated. One other thing that's really exciting is that, let's say that there's another organization who wants to share this information, rather than having to take a screenshot, there's actually a code that they can put on their website, and they can say, use this short code, and then that'll update automatically. So
wow, that's great. So you don't have to be worried about how old the data is. It's going to be up to date all the time. That's terrific.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I think that this is both making sure that we're accountable to this action plan and showing if we're actually making a difference. So how is this information impacting policy, informing policy? And that again is what the center is all about.
So could you talk to us about how you came to be involved in this? Like, what's your background? It's amazing to find somebody who's really excited about data. It's not amazing anymore, but it used to be amazing to find somebody who has technical skills, cares a lot about data, and is oriented towards early childhood.
Yes. So I actually have my master's degree in public health with a concentration in epidemiology and biostatistics.
Oh my gosh. You must have had some exciting times recently to think about things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have always loved data. My family is all very involved in public health, and I think I participated in my first research study and when I was in high school, maybe. And working with some of the statistical analysis software way back then. I think that it is so cool to be able to take some of these really complicated problems and challenges and to be able to take some of the politics away, to take some of the emotion out of things to a certain extent, and to be able to really say, here's the evidence, here's the like really solid, here's the best high quality data that we have. And this isn't coming from a partisan place, this isn't coming from a place of manipulation. This is really, this is what we know. And that gives me a lot of, it feels really good to be able to have a solid grounding. That is definitely something that is really important. And then to be able to follow that up with stories and qualitative data is really important, because the numbers don't always tell the whole story.
So what's the process that you have at BBF for linking this to those stories?
Right. So we're developing some of that. I think that we have started with some forums and some ways of collecting testimony from through our new sort of parent ambassadors and family engagement, through our vast BBF network infrastructure. We have regular attendance at different council meetings, and through our social media and that sort of thing, hundreds of people who are interested and following what we're doing. And for example, when we were asked to provide some testimony in the spring about the impact of COVID on families, we got pages and pages and pages of stories. So we were able to take that and combine it with some of the information that we had gotten from the Child Development Division and from Hunger Free Vermont, and to be able to pair these, because it really is taking everything together to bring a full picture together.
Yeah. Wow. And have you been with BBF like forever, or where
Forever.
did you?
Yeah, so I have been with BBF for almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a part-time regional coordinator down in Southeast Vermont. So that is the Brattleboro Agency of Human Services District.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, pretty soon after that, I started doing some data work as well. And as of the beginning of this year, I stepped back from my regional role, and now I am the full-time data and policy director, which is really exciting. But the regional work has been so informative of my work with data and policy, because it really, and I'm so glad that I'm still living down here in Dummerston, just outside of Brattleboro. I love all the people who are working in Burlington and Waterbury, but sometimes it feels like the outskirts are, it's hard to have that information feedback, feedback loop. And so I think that this regional work has really informed how I hope to keep moving forward with a lot of input from across the early childhood system, from across all of the networks and throughout all of the different sectors.
So as you think about moving forward, you've talked a lot about, better and more user-friendly data. Are there, and sort of making sure that the regions are able to inform what goes on at the state level. Do you have other dreams for the early childhood world that, say, in the next 5 years that you'd like to see happen?
So I really am a data nerd, and we spent the last year or so working on an early childhood needs assessment of the system in Vermont, and there were a lot of really interesting things that came out of that. But one of them was this huge table of data gaps. So 8 pages of questions that we're not able to answer. And really, basic questions. How many children are enrolled in any sort of childcare? That is a question that in the state of Vermont we cannot answer.
Yeah.
Which is astounding. And then we're supposed to be making decisions about how to fund childcare, or so I think that my dream would be that we make progress and we cut this table down. And even if it's one of these data gaps that we're able to address, I think that would be fantastic. I think that partnering with the University of Vermont on this center is going to allow for some of that. helping with their, many of the organizations in this early childhood field don't have something like an institutional review board and don't have access to some of these grants that would be able to help answer these questions or figure out the best way to fill these data gaps.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is really, I think that people are more comfortable with the idea of data and with what it means and the importance. But I think that really improving data literacy, so from all sides, how to read data. When I see something, what are the questions that I want to ask? And how do I know if this is high quality data or question actually was? But also for the people who are asked to collect data, that that they see the value, right? So it's not just, oh my goodness, here's another thing from the state that I have to fill out, and I don't have the capacity to do it, so I'm gonna sort of just, say everything was a 5. And so I think that increasing that feedback loop and really all being on the same page about collecting not more data, but better quality data, more aligned data. I think those are, small things,
big things. I must say right now we're talking with municipalities just in this county about what are your childcare needs? Is there a plan for trying to meet them? And some of that information, as you say, simply does not exist yet. And it's where it does exist, it's hard to find. And I'm realizing we're going to run out of time. I would love to talk to you longer, Dora, but are there things that you'd like to mention or say that I didn't ask about?
I just want to say that this is really a center for the early childhood system. This is not so we are looking for feedback. It is definitely in progress, and it is never going to be a static site. This is really about what are the resources that are needed. Do you have data to share, or do you have a question about something? We will do our best to connect people. Yeah. And I think some links are going to go up in a minute.
Yeah, in just a minute, when we close, I'm going to say thank you, but then the screen will be filled with your contact information and how people can get in touch with BBF.
Wonderful.
So I'll just end by saying thank you so much for both taking the time to be interviewed today and also for the work that you're doing. I think it's very important and very exciting. So,
thank you so much for having me and for sharing this information. I'm so grateful.
Thanks, Dora.